Hello, listener. Before we get into talking about what some are calling the best promo of 𝗵𝗀24 so far, an apology, well actually two, from me. First of all, the main feed episode last week, the gameplay podcast, was only out at the start of this week because of some technical issues with the podcast distributor, so do check that out if you listen via the main podcast feed, not the supporter one, because it is now out there for you to listen to. And the other apology is that after 7 years of avoiding this, it's surprisingly easier to do than you'd think. I recorded this episode with my mic the wrong way round. Yes, it means the audio quality is significantly worse. Producer Luke has done his best with it, but it isn't up to our usual standard, so I do apologise, and it'll be the same for the supporter gameplay episode this week too. Let me skip us through my introduction then and drop us in where I asked Japes how it was being a FUT legend.
It's still good. I think I'm about to finish weekend league, which is fun. I think I have a chance to go for 4 rank 1s now in a row, which I'm pretty pumped about. But you know, there are a lot of new cards. Bayern actually won this weekend, which has been like, it feels weird watching in a way where you're like, I don't actually know if they're going to do it. I don't know if they're going to figure it out. So, you know, a lot of fun stuff going on, Ben.
If it goes on 10 years like it has at United, then that's when you start worrying. Let's move on to JoshXLs. Hello, welcome back.
Did United play this weekend? I must have missed it.
I don't think they did.
No, I'm good. I'm doing good. Packing FUT fantasy cards left, right, and centre. It's all's good in the world.
Yeah, it's been decent pack weights, and we have on this podcast someone who is normally on the gameplay pod, but we brought him in because of his specialist knowledge on somewhat obscure players from across different leagues within Europe. It is top NA player 𝘬𝘍𝗪. Hello.
Hello, thanks for having me. Yes, I've been doing my research, looking at fixtures and injuries and everything related, so hopefully can provide some good insight.
Yeah, it is interesting. And we'll probably talk about Fantasy FC very soon. I'm sure it'll come into pound for pound powerhouse, which we'll do first. For people who don't know, this is the best value player released over roughly the past week. And they can be from the market, they can be an FGC player, they can be an objective player, they can be an evolution as well. So let's start things off with a nomination from Hugh. Who are you going to go for?
For my nomination, I'm going to go with the Evolution's Oliver Skipp. I've been using him as my DM. He goes through the midfielder evolution, one of the free cards. Obviously, the grind is a little bit tedious, but I think he's really fantastic when he comes out, especially Intercept Plus and Tiki-Taka Plus with 4-star weak foot. It just feels like he's very solid in both phases of the game. And he has some good playstyles too. So he has regular pinged, slide tackle, bruiser, first touch. So just an overall very good DM. And then he links to that Udoji SBC, which I did, and also put through the glow up. So that's really fun Spurs pair. If you're someone who's into the fantasy cards, you could do the Timo Werner SBC. So you get like a Spurs trio. So there's definitely some good links there. And obviously he gets full chem as well because he goes through the Academy evolution. So he's my pick.
Yeah, it's funny. I said that he was probably my favorite pick for that midfielder evolution on FUT.gg Twitter and got roasted for it because he has 2-star skills, which for me is an advantage on a defensive midfielder because it means I can't do stupid roulettes in bad areas. So I would say personally, he looks a great option. Right, let's move ourselves on. And actually, I don't know, I feel like Japes, maybe we'll move on to you because I think you might also have a player going through these future stars evolutions.
Yeah, I decided to do the Kossounou. I believe he's from the Côte d'Ivoire, or the Ivory Coast. He plays for Bayer Leverkusen. He is a center back. He is absolutely freaking rapid. And he holds up in Division 1 Elite, no problem. No problem. Even his base card, like his 82, I was shocked by, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll actually do this Evo, because putting a center back into an Evo that's going to give them playstyle pluses of relentless and block is kind of like,
It's not going to make a huge difference, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, and his other defensive playstyle is slide tackle, and that's it. However, he's got low-high work rates, and because he is absolutely rapid, like rapid, very fast player, it means that he is more than willing to chase, track back, and cause all sorts of problems. And then what's fun with him is playing out of the back. He has pinged, he has long ball, and he has press proven. So he becomes like a very surprisingly good ball playing center back as well. Once his Evo is complete, he'll have 93 base reactions to go with 85 composure. And if you're slapping a shadow on him, you're getting, of course, that 99 sprint speed to go with some other 97 interceptions, 97 standing tackle, strong physical stats for a free card. Like, I've been just using him through Weekend League because Weekend League is a fun way to get upgrades now or to do the requirements. And I really, really like this card.
So you're going 20-0 while you're evoing 82 rated players. Is that what you're telling us?
That's correct.
Wow. Let's move on to you, Josh. Have you got a more recent player? I guess these are still around, but they haven't been released technically over the past week.
Yeah, I do. I like a mini shout out for 𝘬𝘯𝘰𝗍𝘀𝘀, who is absolutely incredible. And my pound for pound shout last week, 𝗬𝘀𝘀𝘀 through the FS glow up. He is perfect for that link with long ball plus as well. It's beautiful. But I am going to go for a fantasy option. I'm going for Peter's French cousin, Benjamin Andre, or Bandre, as I always call him. And boy, is he a mysterious girl. He's got 9 playstyles, but only 1 playstyle plus, which I think is why people kind of undervalue him a little bit. He's also only 86 rated, and that's beneath many people. But if I just quickly go through his playstyles, he has got incisive pass, ping pass, and long ball pass. The 3 most important playstyles, I think, for passing. Tiki-taka's decent, but, he's got...
Tiki-taka is better than incisive, let's be real.
Well, in a defensive midfield role, though, do you think?
Always.
I feel like his through balls are better because of incisive passing, but you may be right. I think Tiki-taka in against presses maybe is definitely a better option to have. But against the press, he also has press proven. And then defensively has got anticipate and jockey as his base playstyles. He's got aerial, which, as we all know, is very important. He's got the normal relentless, so he goes all game. And then he's got intercept plus, which is probably my favorite playstyle plus for a defensive midfielder in the way that I play them in that 3-1-4-2.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think the thing that people are missing with this Andre card is that at 14k, his first upgrade will be to an 88, assuming that, the road to the final upgrades where they've gone from 86 to 88, it's still an in-form upgrade. That's what we've been told. So he would go to an 88 with 1 upgrade. And although he missed the first game through suspension, yellow card suspension, he is a stalwart in that Lille side. And they're actually doing really decent this season. He's a very big part of their team. I don't know if he'll get the goal or assist, but they should absolutely pick up 2 wins in their next 3. And I've got this sneaky feeling that him as an 88 or 89 is going to be one of those cards that people will have massively undervalued. He'll get that first upgrade and suddenly you'll start seeing him appearing in people's teams. I've been using him obviously in the cup, but he's been brilliant, like really, really good. And I've watched Nep use him in draft, and he's been standout there as well. So if you've packed him and he's just sat in your club and you're not using him, just give him a bit of a run out, because I think you'll be very, very nicely surprised by how well he plays.
I packed him untradeable. Didn't really think much of it other than I'm like, oh, we finally have an Andre card, because I feel like he gets one card that's like kind of beefy each year that nobody really thinks about.
But is sneaky good, yeah.
Yeah, then it's sneaky good. Like nobody gets excited about it, and then you're like, oh, I play against this card more than I thought I would. And I've used him in the, what do you call it? The fantasy friendly, whatever it is.
Yep.
And because of that, I decided that I would not throw him in an SBC. I was like, let's see how this plays out, because I think he's pretty solid. And I will say that intercept plus on a holding midfielder is really growing on me.
I got to say, Kimmich for me has been disappointing defensively. And I think it's purely because he doesn't have any version of intercept. It's just bruiser on him, isn't it, in terms of defensive playstyles, I believe. And I think it does make him a lot less effective at picking up those balls, because I had 𝗬𝘂𝘃 there before, the Centurions version, and his interceptions just felt quite a lot better, even though I think the stats are quite similar. So yeah, I'm a big exponent of the intercept. And I actually think Kimmich is probably more of an advanced player as a result of him not having that many defensive playstyles. which you mentioned before, Japes. Right, let me just sneak in my pound for pound at the end, who obviously, I feel like I'm contractually obliged to put forward Majri.
The Maj.
The Majster. 5-star skills and 4-star weak foot, which is an upgrade from 3 to 4 on this version. But interestingly, has a complete change of playstyle plus. She has whipped on her base version, which isn't particularly useful, obviously, as a midfielder, but technical and press proven plus. Really, really nice midfield playstyles. Yeah, passing ones may be slightly better, but she is more of a dribbler, more of a kind of flair player, I guess. But while she is, and while her stats are very strong in that area, she has 87 defensive awareness, 89 interceptions. She's decently strong at 77 strength and 80 aggression. And she's just a really good box-to-box midfielder. Obviously, people know I used the Centurion's evolution for quite a long time. She left the squad maybe a couple of weeks ago now, unfortunately. So it's really nice to have brought this out now, which is a card that, I can put in, is fairly effective now, but I think actually also has very, very good opportunities for upgrades and is just 160k. Yeah. I've just found that you can just technical dribble right through midfields with her, like just slaloming backwards and forwards. And I think people aren't really expecting that from a player coming from deep, because she has high defensive, medium attacking, so she tends to kind of hang out a bit further out. Very fortunately, and I don't think this has ever happened before, where I've been like, I'd really like this particular player, and I've packed them. I did actually pack her, so wow. I have a first owner, which is really nice.
What does that feel like?
It was genuinely great, although I did get like 2 𝗪𝗂𝑐𝑒s and someone else before, so it's like, maybe my luck's in, maybe it will happen. And it did. So that was pretty satisfying, especially because I'm replacing an Evolutions version, which you kind of have that attachment to. And I think it was 𝘭𝑪𝘬𝘀𝘁 was messaging saying, will you have an attachment to this Majri like you did to the old Majri? Because I mentioned having sort of this attachment, not wanting to take her out of the team. And actually, because I've packed her now, obviously, you get a bit more attachment through that first owner status, which I wouldn't have had otherwise if I'd bought her. So, yeah.
I think the biggest thing for her card, actually, is that they fixed her, the biggest issue on her base card, which was the stamina. They've given her 24 stamina, so she's now got 85, which is more than passable because she doesn't have any form of relentless.
Yeah.
But 85 is fine in that midfield, especially for a kind of more dribbly role rather than a full-on box-to-box.
Yeah, and it's fun that she can potentially get some upgrades as well. And that actually leads us nicely onto what we're going to talk about next, which is a top 5 that Hugh has come up with, having looked at the various different FC Fantasy players and their upgrade potential, their upcoming games and things like that. Hugh, do you want to take it away and go through your list?
First 2 we're going to start off with are ones that have actually already been mentioned, but I think it's a good segue. So I'm going to start off with that Benjamin Andre that Josh mentioned. Just a really great card for 15k. Has so many play styles, very solid all-around stats. I don't think he's likely to get more than 1 or 2 boosts. I mean, Lille are kind of up and down, but he is their captain. He missed the first game through suspension, but he should play the next 3. So he should at least get that boost. Maybe they get 2 wins or he gets a goal or assist. So like Josh said, even if he only gets 1 or 2 boosts, that could be a really good card all around. And for 15k, it's pretty low risk. So that's my first one. Definitely one I would recommend checking out if you're on a bit of a budget. Next one is Majri, just like you just mentioned, Ben. Some really good play styles, looking very solid all around. Lyon women are very, very good. They pretty much always dominate their domestic league. So pretty likely that she gets a good shot at all of the boosts. The one that's least likely is probably the 3 appearances, just because Lyon kind of rotate their team a bit. But you never know. At least if she could get like 3 boosts for the price and for, what her stats and play styles and 5-star skills, that could be like a very, very good card. And obviously, Lyon links are very useful as well with some of the team of the years.
It's probably also worth pointing out, especially with all of the women's players, that because of international breaks, there's quite a long wait until you get even to the second game. Like the second game for Majri will be on the 15th of March. So that's still 20 days away. And her 4th game would be the 31st of March. So it's going to be quite a wait for the upgrade on the women's players. It's just one thing to bear in mind compared to the men's who have already played their first game and are kind of going to rattle through them relatively quickly.
Yeah, I did wonder whether they might have somewhat compensated for that, because some of the women's players look quite strong already. So maybe they pushed their upgrades a little bit more. But yeah, Hugh, who else have you got in this list? And I know you have been considering when they would reach their final game, the fourth game.
Yeah, definitely. So the next one I have is Hakan Çalhanoğlu from Inter Milan. Again, one with so many play styles, just a crazy all-around card. Long ball and 𝘵𝘃𝗀𝘀 plus, 4-star, 4-star, but has a good balance of passing, shooting, and defensive play styles, as well as relentless. Currently 330K. He did not play their game this weekend just because they were winning comfortably and they rotated the side. The next few games, I think, are pretty perfect for this because they're all winnable games, but they're not so easy that he would like be rested, I think. So they have Atalanta at home, Genoa at home, and then Bologna away. So all ones that I think he should play in. There's some UCL knockout mixed in there, so it's possible he could get rested, but I think he comes on as a sub anyway. But yeah, they already won one game. They scored 4 goals, so now they only need 7 goals from the remaining 3 games. Definitely doable. He's definitely one I think has a good chance from the men's side at all 4 boosts, which I think is pretty rare when you look at some of the options. But I think, even if he gets like 3 boosts, if he does get all 4, he's going to be like a really fantastic all-around card.
It's an interesting one in terms of that final 11 goals that is probably the hardest to get of all of these. Inter have already scored 4, I think, right, in that last match. So
yep,
they have just 7. I say just, there's still quite a lot left. So as you say, quite possible. But are there any other clubs that you think might actually make that? I guess City would be a club that people would think might be able to make it, but they're not doing especially well at the moment, I'd say.
Yeah, City is a difficult one because they have a really tough run of fixtures. They only scored 1 goal against Bournemouth this weekend. I know we have a couple United fans on here. They do tend to, when they play United at home, score a fair few goals, but it's a hard one to assume will happen. It's like, could they score 5? Probably. Could they score 2? Maybe. So, it's hard for the price of those City players to bet on. The next fixture after that is Liverpool away, which they probably will score like at most 1 or 2 goals, maybe not even score any goals. And then after that, they have Brighton away, which is not an easy game. So I am personally staying away from the City cards, especially some of those heroes are ridiculously priced. I would be not shocked at all if those heroes don't even get a single boost, just given the way City's season has gone. But, I guess it's high risk, high reward. They'd be fantastic cards if they did get boosted.
Yeah, it's a good point on the heroes. Maybe we can talk about that a bit more in a second. And then we've got those 2 other players from your top 5 to be revealed. And we'll do that after this break. Hello, welcome back after the break. Right, as promised, those 2 other players in your top 5, who are you picking out?
So my first one remaining is going to be Ibrahima Konaté. I think he just looks like a very solid card. I think his price has been kept down a bit because he doesn't have any version of Anticipate, but he has basically everything else. He also has Relentless Plus, which is, I think, the only center back that has that, at least starting off with, not like an Evo or something. I know there's some like the Future Stars Academy players that you can like put it onto, but I think he's someone you could maybe run aggressive interceptions on from center back, which would be pretty cool. He has 69 stamina with Relentless Plus, a bit of an interesting combination, but otherwise he has fantastic stats with basically every other play style you could ask for. Great passing. Liverpool, they don't have the easiest run of fixtures. They have Forest away, City at home, Everton away, Brighton at home, but currently they just have so many injuries that like he kind of has to play. And you would think they get at least 1 clean sheet in there. I think they have a good chance at 2 wins. 11 goals may be tricky, but they've had a fair few games this season where they've scored a number of goals. So I think for 400K for a Premier League center back who links to Van Dijk easily, plus he's a French center back, so it's not like the chemistry is difficult. I think he seems really good, and one I could definitely see getting 3 or 4 boosts.
Yeah, and lengthy is still good. And he's lengthy, so that's nice. And Bruiser Plus is a great playstyle plus, I think. Right, who's the final player on the list then?
So for my final one, I'm going to go with a hero, and I'm going to go with Nadine Kessler, the hero, coming in at right around 400K, but just some fantastic play styles, very balanced stats. Hullet Gang with 90 shooting, 91 passing, 90 dribbling, 𝘵𝘃𝗀𝘀 Plus and Relentless Plus, so you can run aggressive interceptions. put her in the midfield with Salah and just let them do whatever they want with aggressive interceptions, and you got a pretty crazy midfield going on. But I've used her other versions this cycle, and she's been great. In terms of Wolfsburg women, they are pretty much one of the premier teams, along with Bayern in the women's Bundesliga. Their fixture list, not the easiest, but for the women's boost, they only need 2 wins and 11 goals. So even though they do play Bayern, who are first, and Hoffenheim away, who are fourth, they have pretty easy games, home against Leipzig and away to Freiburg. So I would think they at least get the 2 wins, and if they can stack up some goals in the easier games, they do have a shot at the 11 goals.
Yeah, it's a good shout at the end there. Josh, let's move on to you, because I'm sure you've probably got a few other players up your sleeve that you wanted to mention.
Yeah, I mean, just on that Kessler shout, just if you're going, 11 goals in 4 games sounds hard, even with, especially when you've got 2 difficult fixtures. Their last game in the Women's Bundesliga, they won 9-1. So just as a kind of, and if you think that's maybe like a little out of the ordinary, in their last 6 games, they've had 2 10-0 wins. Now, they may have been friendlies, but they are, when they hit, they can really hit. So that could all happen in one game. I think for me, like, I look at players kind of like Politano, who Napoli have been terrible this year. Probably one of the worst like champions performances in Serie A. But I kind of feel like when a team's got that much quality, they can't be bad forever. And so, there's every chance that they do just sneak 2 wins. Politano will get the 3 appearances, whether they're off the bench or not. Now, I think he's got something like 3 goals and assists total this season, so the chance of you getting that is low, and they're not going to get the 11 goals. But even just with a +2, I think I saw a lot of people on Friday night going, who should I invest in? Who should I invest in? And I was like, basically add +2 to every player and go, would they be more expensive with that +2? And if you think the answer is yes, they're probably good for an investment. Like, I can't believe how cheap Molina is, for example, the right back at Atletico Madrid. Now, unfortunately, they didn't keep a clean sheet in their first game and didn't win, but he did. I think he got an assist or he scored, but he doesn't get anything for that because he's a defender. But, there's every chance that he can get 3 upgrades and become a 90 rated right back with whipped pass, like high 4-4. His stats already are decent. Maybe he's a little bit weak, but it's not the end of the world. I did manage to pick up that Konaté out of a 81 plus player pick. So there's a small side of me that hopes Liverpool just have a good 2 games, and I can get a decent upgrade on him. I really like Foot Fantasy or Fantasy FC as a promo, and I feel like it's an interesting barometer of how people judge the price of players. Iago Aspas, all I saw was, passing playstyle on a forward. And it's like, yeah, but he's already got his goal. He scored at the weekend, so he's guaranteed the upgrade to an 89, and he's definitely going to get the 3 appearances. So he's going to go up to a 90 rated player, and at 33k, it just kind of doesn't make sense that no one's going, let's just buy lots of him. And his stats are amazing. 4-star. Like, maybe he's not the kind of whip cross head thing that people seem to be going for right now, but he's got an awful lot of nice play styles. And, with the guaranteed kind of, I think he's pretty much guaranteed to get the 3 appearances. So with a guaranteed +2, he's going to be over 90 pace, over 90 shooting, over 90 dribbling, with mid-80s physical and high 80s passing. Like, that's an outrageous card for 30k. So I kind of, without going specific on players, I just like the promo in general. I definitely think there's a shout out for that Giuly SBC. There's been times when EA have kind of tended to overprice mid-range SBC cards, but for a 90 rated card that probably will get a +1, probably not the +2, I think that's pretty decent. Like, and for anybody who's been messing around or has looked at FC on TikTok, Flair and Acrobatic, and especially Trickster if you can get it, but obviously he doesn't have Trickster, but Flair and Acrobatic, you can pull off some quite fun animations that aren't really open to anybody else. I've been messing around with Acrobatic a lot with Okafor up front and scoring some goals that I'd never even considered I could score, like volleys from silly angles. So I think like combine that with the 83x10s and the kind of menu grind we've been given and the exchanges, which I'm sure we'll like talk about all of the menu stuff that's gone on. I think Giuly's a pretty well priced, pretty fun card to just give a go to.
I love Giuly as a card.
Have you used versions before, actually? Because I feel like not many people have used him or played against him, actually.
I haven't, but when I saw the price of it, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go out and do this. Monaco is top 4 in the French league, maybe. I'm not. Who will be able to tell me? I think he's like top 4 in the French league. I know they tend to score goals in batches. And so I think for an upgrade for him, I think it's pretty reasonable. And then I look at these play styles. Base technical it's not technical plus, but it's fine. Like it's very usable. And the technical quick step combo together is very good. Then you give him finesse, then you give him dead ball, then you give him relentless, and you give him whipped to go with his flair plus, acrobatic plus. I really like his like mix of stats as well. For 90K, if you look at his face card stats and you give him +2, so you're going to be 94 pace, 90 shooting, 90 passing, 93 dribbling.
Yeah.
On a hero chem, that's French. What?
Yeah.
And they do have PSG next, but they then play Strasbourg, who are 13th and on like a terrible run of form, and then Metz and Lorient, who are both in the relegation spot. So there is every chance that they get 11 goals because they do tend to kind of get a 3 or 4 goal win against bad sides. So it's not out of the question by any means.
One thing I was going to ask you, Hugh, is how do you feel about the boosts just being overall or stat boosts rather than having an additional play style or anything kind of along those lines? Like with the other live promos, we've had a bit more diversity in the types of upgrade.
Yeah, I do think it would be nice to see some sort of playstyle plus boost. I think it's tricky for them because they have, I think if you didn't release them, or many of them at least with 2 playstyle pluses, that, you know, relying on a boost to add that second one could like really make or break the cards. And you probably don't want them any to have 3, but I think they could at least add like, say some boost where if it's, you know, if they win 3 games or something like that, then they get, or for each win, they get an extra regular play style added. Just like, and if they feel like that's too common, then just give people like flair or something, you know, like they can be more malleable with it. And I think it would have added a little more intrigue rather than a flat rate, you know, stats across the board, especially for some players that are, maybe they're kind of more specialist players and the stats that you really care about are already pretty good. Then the added stats don't really change that much, you know, when you look at what they could be.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I think on the other hand, I'm thinking, Josh, actually, when they've added what I would call an unadvertised Playstyle Plus through live promos.
It's always been terrible.
Terrible, yeah. And not knowing what might get added if they did it like that does probably put people off. And also the overall boosts, they're coming over a relatively short period versus other live promos. So I guess that kind of keeps things a bit more, controlled, but also does provide enough of an upgrade at each stage.
Yeah, I do think, again, we've got to consider the fact that EA don't know any of these players are going to get an upgrade. And so if they tie an upgrade to a Playstyle Plus, that means everybody's got to go with 0 or 1 Playstyle Plus, which makes them infinitely less desirable from the off. On the giving a kind of less desirable Playstyle Plus as the second one, when we had the conversation about the fact that Team of the Year were getting double Playstyle Pluses, how quickly will we see other promos get them? I think we said then that the chances were the second Playstyle Pluses would not be that great for a while, and we'd start seeing kind of the power curve will essentially go towards having some of the more desirable double Playstyle Pluses. I think we're beginning to get a few of those players, especially through evolutions, but it's not a surprise to me that we're seeing a lot of Flair and Trickster in as the second Playstyle Pluses, and they have their merits, but then they're not the same as having like a finesse shot plus for an attacker or one of the passing playstyles.
It depends. Like, I would rather that hemp card that came out, I would rather her have Trickster than finesse because she's got whipped. Like, I would like whipped Trickster means that you can use L1 dribbling to create space impossibly easy with her like frame and dribbling ability. Like impossibly easy. It is so easy to do. Whereas like if it's finesse, the card becomes, and maybe I'm just at like a stage in the game where I feel like finesse is such a one-dimensional play style. Like if a card has finesse, everybody knows what you're trying to do to make the most of that play style. And Trickster is just like more of an unpredictable play style. And I think same thing with many of the passing ones. I just find myself gravitating towards those.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we're veering a little bit into gameplay, so maybe we'll talk about this on the gameplay pod. But Hugh, you're not going to be on that one, so it'd be interesting to hear from you, actually. Are there any underrated playstyles that you personally feel people don't really give as much credit as they possibly should have?
Press Proven's definitely underrated, just with how it affects left stick dribbling. When you think about a midfielder, it can be useful on an attacker, but I really like it on a midfielder because, you know, if you're receiving the ball in tight spaces, being able to turn and wiggle away, definitely really useful. I think intercept is becoming something that people kind of realize how good it is now. That I would say it's not quite as good as anticipate, but it's really useful, especially in midfield. I know I was talking about that Skipp evolution and the way that, you know, he can intercept passes with Intercept Plus is really good. And then something I think I actually might have posed this as a question that maybe you guys will talk about in the gameplay pod, but you know, the different passing play styles with how good they are, they can almost remove the need for other types of passes for you. So for example, with Tiki-Taka Plus, a regular ground pass is hit almost as well as a pinged pass from another player. Like not a pinged plus pass, but like a regular pinged pass. So like with Skipp, with Tiki-Taka Plus, I don't even need to do pinged passes, so I don't have to worry about the accuracy or, you know, holding the bumper and all these things. I can just play regular passes and they're extremely fast and accurate. Or with pinged pass, I might not play as many through balls because I can, you know, whip the ball in to someone's feet really quick rather than needing them to, you know, create space to run into. I can just get it to them as fast as possible. So I think having these passing play styles can just make your life so much easier, not having to worry about what type of pass you should play. Just play the one that they're elite at, and then it'll sort itself out.
Yeah, I've got to say, I know, we're drifting into gameplay a little bit, but I've never hit as many lofted balls with like Bruno Fernandes and Musa as I have done in the last like week, just because I just want to see that little icon appear above their head when they hit it.
We'll definitely talk about this a bit more in the gameplay pod, and we should probably take a break there, but we've got more to talk about because there's a lot going on around fantasy, so we'll do that after this break. Hello, listeners. A quick reminder, because it is the tail end of that giveaway, which was started for Team of the Year. If you've been thinking about signing up to become a supporter, then it's a great time to do so because there are 12,000 𝘴𝑐𝗱 points still to be won. Just search support for weekly, and there's currently a free trial you can access for 7 days, and after that it's just £3 a month and you get an extra podcast every single week, and there are loads of perks beyond that too. So just search support for weekly in your preferred search engine. Right, let's jump back into this week's main feed pod. Hello, welcome back after the break. Right, let's talk evolutions. And actually, there's been a bit of an uptick in interest in evolutions. I mean, it was already maybe improving a bit because people were quite interested in the Future Stars ones, but they were much more restricted. But we've got some more open-ended evolutions now, Josh.
Yeah, definitely. Like one of the biggest issues I've seen from people that have really spent a lot of time with evolutions is that once you gave a player a Playstyle Plus, it kind of just felt like that was it. They were never going to get another upgrade because the number of Evos we've got that was open to players that had a Playstyle Plus was so small. And it's kind of been a waiting game, really, for them to release an Evo that was open because we hadn't had one in so long, or that allowed you to have at least one Playstyle Plus. And they've done both of those things in the first weekend for Fantasy FC. So, you know, we had the Pick It Up promo on Friday night, which I've seen a few people say that the stats boost compared to the rating boost, it was a +4 overall, but kind of +2s and 1s in the passing, physical shooting and defending. But you did get a +11 in pace. It's maybe a slight over overall boost, but I don't really mind because 11 pace is very, very, like, it's a massive, massive upgrade considering that you could play with 79 pace to having 90 pace. And some of the players that come out of it, that Patri Guijarro looks unbelievable. And it's not a shock that she's been extinct since that evolution went live. But I think both of these Evos have kind of pandered a little bit more to the people that as I say, have invested a lot of time in building their clubs, in, you know, people that are running, I don't know, Arsenal or Luton or whoever it may be, a club that they like or a country that they like from whichever league, because it gives you that bit more freedom in terms of who you're choosing because you're not being restricted by playstyle pluses. And I hope it's just a sign of things to come. You know, now that every evolution has the not in progress evolution thing in there, the reds that we're getting now have not in progress evolution. I hope EA are less worried about the kind of glitches that we've had. And I'm kind of got to tip my cap. It's definitely a step in the right direction. And two, I think pretty decent Evos, especially considering they're both free.
And then in terms of the evolutions and the specifics of them, the fancy FC assisting winger, after Japes' slander of incisive pass last week, it was interesting to see that offered as the playstyle for fancy FC assisting winger. And actually quite a lot of people saying, you know, they really like incisive pass and that, you know, Japes is clearly a fraud. The 20 and O's aren't real and all this kind of stuff.
Maybe I just don't play through balls. Like, I don't. It's probably that. So I was talking, like, I have my little Discord, and I was talking to one of the guys in there, and George Best gets into these phenomenal positions for me, but that man cannot make a one-touch pass to save his life. He can't do it. And, like, especially a one-touch through ball, where Drogba will be like splitting two defenders, like not wide open, but like you should be able to play the pass. And so I recorded a clip, and his name's GC. He was like, you could play that first time with incisive. And I was like, what?
That is true. Yeah.
I am increasingly like, dude, just give me every passing play style. Like every single one. I think I'm going to do that winger one. I think I'm going to take that Foot Future Stars Brian card.
Oh yeah.
And toss him in there. I'm going to maybe I'll do the thing where you take him not to the 86, I'll take him to the 85. Let it actually no, it'll expire. I have two of those red Evos left, and I don't know what to do with them. So
yeah, you can put one on him. Yeah.
I was looking at one with that today. Actually, you can do gold 𝘬𝘃𝗃 with the winger one and the striker one, and he comes out pretty crazy. The Strike Force training and fantasy FC assisting winger. If you have red Evos left, he comes out with 91 pace, 89 shooting, 88 dribbling, or 88 passing, 90 dribbling, first touch plus, rapid plus, incisive plus, power shot, tiki-taka, finesse shot, technical quick step, and 𝘵𝑚𝑒𝑙𝑎. So
worse than Foot Fantasy Giuly.
Well, the triple playstyle pluses that are good versus two.
There is an interesting point off that 𝘬𝘃𝗃𝗃 double evolution, because initially I was like, hang on, that can't be done, because a week after Strike Force training is when you'd have to submit it to assisting winger, so it wouldn't work. But it seems like they've changed the lead-off times for new evolutions to just 4 days from the date of when you have to submit it before it expires. So there's now less time that you have to complete it, which is an interesting change. I'm trying to like mentally work out why they might have done that, but curious.
Just really quickly on what Japes was saying, having also used Best myself, I agree that his passing's been disappointing. When I switched him from a Hawk to a Deadeye, I did find him way better. Like he can actually complete passes now. And I think big part of that is without the shooting play styles, I felt he was better as more of a creative winger, like dribbling to the end line and doing cutbacks. And then you get to those cutback areas and his passing just was such a letdown. And when I used Deadeye, he still felt pretty fast. So Deadeye definitely helped with the passing. And I'll also add with Incisive Plus, I agree that I also like it, but I think part of the reason that sometimes it doesn't seem that good is I think it encourages people to play too many through balls. And if you play too many through balls, it's like a really good way to get countered because you're playing them when you shouldn't. Like, say you get it on your CDM and you think, oh, I'm going to play a through ball because my center mid's running into space. And you play a through ball straight through the middle and it just gets intercepted and you get countered. So I think that it's definitely on its own, it's good, but I think it can kind of tempt people into playing too fast.
Right, let's move on to what is going on in the menus. Josh, any tips for people?
Yeah, I mean, it expires today, so it's a little bit sad, but the 81 plus player picks linking with the exchanges, which have come back, has been unbelievably good, like almost infinite at times in terms of the grind that you could do. But, we've got the 81 doubles are there now, which I think are a good price. I think they're a bit more pricey than the 81 plus player pick, and I don't know if that's fair. We've also got the crafting upgrade is back, so very similar to the Team of the Year crafting upgrade that we had, where you get the 3 rare gold 77 plus players. And we've got the daily 3 times 83 by 10s are also back. And so, the menu grind in general has just been really, really good, really ramped up, like back to being able to do anything you want. The exchanges are there for 53 days now, which I think is an interesting length of time. Seems to be taking us right up until the end of April, which suggests around where you'd expect Team of the Season to start. So it's an interesting timeline on those. But glad that they're there for a much longer period of time, because I definitely think they are a great addition. I've seen some people online say that they think they're bad value, but if you've got a duplicate 86 or 87 rated player and don't really have anywhere to put them, it's a pretty good place to just get a decent pack back, and then you can recycle them into the upgrades and kind of start that whole grind again to try and get some of these cards. And be interesting to see how they work through more and more promos as time goes on. And then when you compare that to the objectives we've got as well, the FC Fantasy Cup, which we've mentioned a few times. I'm sure we'll talk about it in the gameplay pod, because it's been fascinating watching people have to use players that aren't super elite. But the rewards from that are amazing. 85 by 10 for completing everything, 84 by 20 for winning 20, 85 by 3, 84 by 5, ultimate packs, an icon Fernando Torres just out of nowhere. So I feel like there's been a lot of criticism of EA and the content side of things. And, gameplay, from a gameplay perspective, the fact that you don't see a massive variety in people's teams. And it does feel like they are trying to address an awful lot of those problems. I think this is probably up there as my favorite promo of the year so far, just because of what they've added from an objective and evolution and SBC perspective.
And I was going to say, just one final point to make on FC Fantasy is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Hugh, basically when a player is released, a new FC Fantasy player, and bear in mind there's going to be a team 2, because they said this is team 1, I believe, they actually get their upgrades from the day that player is released, which isn't how it's worked in the past. So it means that you need to keep an eye out a little bit, because games before that player is released into the game wouldn't count. And what that potentially means, or at least in my view should happen, is that actually the players released as the promo goes on should really get slightly better, because they obviously will have longer until they're upgraded versus other players. But actually for women's players, it doesn't make too much difference because there is an international break. So that is worth noting. But I think that's where we're going to wrap it up, so we can whip round, say our goodbyes. First of all, Hugh, thank you very much for coming on this content podcast and giving some foot fantasy advice.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's definitely an interesting promo, a lot to keep up with. I know you kind of pack these players, especially some of the lower rated ones, and you think, I'm not going to use them. They just sit in your club. And then next thing you know, their club has won like 3 games. You're like, oh my God, like I have like an 89 rated. That's pretty good all of a sudden. So, check your clubs, make sure in case you packed any. I don't think they're always walking out, so they can be kind of buried in bigger packs. But yeah, it's definitely a fun one, fun to keep up with. Hopefully the international break doesn't kill the hype around it too much by the time we come back for those Team 2 cards or some of the Team 1 cards as well. But thanks for having me as always.
Yeah, no, it's been great to have you. And thank you very much as well to Josh. As always, we're going to hop off along with Japes and do this gameplay podcast.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm enjoying Foot Fantasy, and I hope the content continues in this vein, because it's a lot of fun at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And to Japes, finally, thank you very much for joining us as always, and look forward to chatting more on the gameplay pod.
Cheers, Ben. Enjoyed it.
Been good. And that wraps us up. So thank you very much to all you listeners out there listening in. If you'd like to subscribe, if you don't already, then you can do so via all the different podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. And if you're catching this on YouTube, do drop a comment, leave a like. It definitely does help out. And of course, if you'd like more Foot Weekly content, then you can become a supporter and get an extra podcast every single week for just £3 a month, and initially for a free trial. A big thank you if you are supporting, and a big thank you, of course, to those icon patrons: Dave B, Hugh J, Darren W, Alistair M, Don P, Rob P, Jeff B, Damon H, Tom B, Adam G, Neil P, Alex M, Jake S, Dan W, Roger D, Lee A, Andrew C, Nishant, Waterman, Dylan H, Adam R, Rob L, Brendan W, Michael K, David G, Jimmy K, John D, Michael B, Aditya S, and Joshua K. Plus a special thanks to Luke M, Dave B, Hugh J, Tom M, Darren W, and Pato Foot for advice and production assistance. Before I leave you, just one more thing to add though. Ultimate Team is a bit like life really. It has its many ups and downs. If you're having a few more downs than ups in real life in these more difficult times, then please don't feel that you're alone or need to struggle on without taking action. If you go to thecalmzone.net, there's loads of resources, advice, support, or even just a friendly chat for anyone who needs it. If it sounds like it could help you, then head over to thecalmzone.net. And for now, have a good one, and I'll catch you on the next podcast.